Hi everyone, it's Mike here and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today I have a little bit of a different kind of project. It's a little bit of a restoration cum repurposing kind of project. Now a few years ago when we did the Asylum Steampunk Festival in Lincoln, while we were having a kind of like afternoon where we were going to see what all the other stall holders were selling, I came across an old, small Evacuee suitcase dating from the Second World War. Now this was one of those suitcases that were given to children when they were being evacuated from the main cities out into the countryside for their own safety while the bombs were dropping. So these tiny little suitcases would have been full of kids' clothing and teddy bears and sandwiches and stuff, and they were all packed off onto trains and sent off into the country. So this is one of those original Evacuee suitcases that I wanted to kind of restore, but also give it a little bit of a twist. So I'll turn over to my overhead camera and I'll show you exactly what I want to do. Okay, so this is the little suitcase. I've had to zoom out as far as I possibly can on the camera to get everything in, so that's why you can probably see the two edges of my craft mat underneath. If I try and take that off, there you go, you can probably see the white. That's probably a bit better actually. So yes, so this is the suitcase. Now as you can see, I have given it a bit of a clean. It has been cleaned, it has been slightly polished just to kind of get rid of, well, how many years? 50, 70 years worth of dust and grime, and I've also cleaned up as best I can the locks, and they both still work, which is fantastic. There is no muggle-worthy catch on this one, unfortunately, so it didn't belong to anybody going to Hogwarts just yet, but there is there is scratched just between the two handles the initials JW. So whoever this belonged to, whether it's a Janet or a John or a Wilson or a Watson or whatever, John Watson, there you go, you see it could have belonged to Sherlock Holmes' sidekick. So yeah, it's in fairly good condition all the way around. There's no major damage to it. Some of the stitching on the edges are a little bit soft, but apart from that, it's in pretty good nick. There are some dings and dents, there's some wear showing on the hinge at the end, but the actual stitching on the lid at the back is still sound, and on this side there's a little bit of fraying on the stitches there, but apart from that it's in pretty good nick for something which is over 70 years old. And then when we open the inside, it's a different story altogether. So if we have a look at the lid, you can see that the houndstooth paper has started to come away from the side, but it's not completely destroyed. This section here, there was actually a label stuck on there, or has been a label stuck on there, which is now gone, unfortunately, and something else has been stuck on. When they've pulled it, it's also ripped all of the rest of the lining paper. All this can be repaired or replaced. I would prefer to repair it rather than replace it because it's the original. So on the inside of the suitcase at the back, that line you can see there is the stitch line where the lid of the suitcase is actually joined to the base. So again, don't really want to interfere too much with that. So the whole process of the restoration on this is going to be quite sympathetic. Now then, there was a fragment from the, I think it's from the back part here, which was just lying in the suitcase. So it does fit. If I can just show you without trying to get my head in shot too much. It did actually come from around about here. So you can see the top edge. In fact, it might even be that piece from down there. No, I think it probably isn't. but it's probably from around about there anyway. It was already in the suitcase, so it was already loose in the bottom of the suitcase when I purchased it a couple of years ago, and I've hung on to it and hung on to it and hung on to it, because what I wanted to do is I wanted to sit down and see if I can recreate this pattern on the computer. So what I did this morning when I decided this is what I was going to do today is I scanned that fragment of paper into the computer, and then what I did is I copied it and then laid it over, and I kept overlaying the fragments to build up a bigger piece of the pattern. And there you go. And that, when done, depending which way around I put it, that's probably the right way around, I've tried to colour match it as best I can. Now this looks a little bit darker, because once we've actually got this glued in, this will go a little bit darker as well. So I can, if I want to, restore that lid. But maybe not today. But what I want to do is I want to try and stabilise all of these pieces of paper and get them all stuck back down again as best I can. So to do that, the best way to do it is to actually use some PVA glue. So I'll have to just quickly, I'll put this suitcase down, and then I'll get my craft mat back out again, and then I'll get some brushes and we can get cracking on trying to restore all this around the edges, around the sides. Okay, so to get started, I have a small kind of ramekin dish, little souffle dish, and I've got some Anita's PVA tacky glue. I've taken the lid off and I'm just going to squeeze some out into the bottom of the bowl. That should do me. I'll just pop the top back on again. Oh, tighten it on completely because I may need it again in a little while. And I've got some water, and I'm just going to add a little bit of water into the glue and just mix that up, just to kind of make it a little bit runnier so that it will go on easier. I can paint it on rather than daub it on, if you know what I mean. And of course, once you're done, you can just drop it straight into some water and it'll just dissolve away. Right, so let's bring that suitcase back in again. And the first thing I'm going to try and do is try and just conserve, or put a little bit of glue underneath these edges here. And then just paint that down. Now, with any luck, this will kind of start to hold it. And it will dry completely clear. So I'll just add some of that glue. All underneath. Okay, and there's a little bit of out of this side here. And we'll just paste that down, and that will keep that in place. And I'm just going to go around making sure that they're stuck down. Now, on the inside of the lid, I'll probably have to turn it round. There we go. And then, let's see if you can see it. Right, I will have to add some glue just along the edge here, and then start persuading the paper to go back up onto it again. And once I've got a bead of glue, the paper is going to be extremely dry and brittle, so once we start feeding the paper with a little bit of moisture, hopefully it will start kind of straightening itself out. And then we can start lifting it back up again and gluing it back into position. So there's a little bit of a curl on this piece here, which I need to just encourage. And I really could do with both hands at this stage. So what I'll do, because I can't hold this to show you what I'm doing and glue it at the same time, because I'm holding the suitcase up with my left hand and I really need to be in. Actually, I've got it. There we go. So I'm just going to gently pat and hold down and then go over the top just with like a quick sealer coat. Just on that side, and that's the bit there where we've already done. Just get some more glue under that section there, and then we can paste that down so that's not going to go anywhere in the future. Okay, so I can now tackle this side. So I'm going to do the same thing on this side that I did on that side. So I'll go ahead and do that, and I'll come back and I'll show you how I've done it all, how I've managed to get it all stuck down. Okay, so I've managed to get all of that now stuck down on the inside, so that's back where it needed to be. But I actually think I do want to try and restore this with an infill piece. So this is the paper that I showed you earlier, the one that I restored from that fragment. So what I need to do is I need to take a piece from this side and try and fit that so that it kind of blends in a bit more. So what I want to try and do is just take a piece that I'm tearing down with my left hand, which means that the white edge stays on the piece that I don't want. So I'm just going to pull that. There we go. And then this is going to be the piece that I'm going to glue back in over the top to try and hide that kind of rip on that side. I'm not particularly too bothered about all of this. I just want this piece protecting here on the edges where the stitching is. So I'm going to paint the whole lot, the whole area with the glue, and it probably will go a little bit darker while it's wet anyway. And I will go over the top and give it a top coat of sealer when it's done. And I'm going to try and match up the pattern as best I can. If it's slightly off, it doesn't really make any difference, it doesn't matter. There we go. And that's going to be nice and sealed. I'll just turn that round so you can see it. It kind of matches the pattern now. Yeah, I'm fairly happy with that. So I'm going to leave this to dry, and then I'm going to start on the main section of the suitcase. Okay, so there's only a little bit at this side just to stick down There's a big fragment missing there, which is where I think that piece came from. The original piece came from. I think that's where it came from, but I'm not going to stick it back on until I'm finished. So that probably will be the last piece that I will stick back into place. Yeah, just about there, I think. Just about there. Sorry for my elbow getting in the way. So what I'm going to do is just quickly go around the rest of the side where the paper fragments are still hanging off, and I'm just going to try and get behind with the PVA, and I'm going to just add a little bit of that PVA to the back of the paper, let it sit for a second to soak in, and then once the paper's softened enough and it's not brittle anymore, I can just gently persuade it up with my brush into position, and that can be left to dry of its own accord then. So I've just got this section along here to do now. Just here. I should have cleared all this mess off my desk to start off with, shouldn't I? So again, and I'm going to leave that strip where the stitching's coming through just for now. So just gently paint the back of the paper, all those little fragments. It's delicate work, but as long as you don't go at it like a bull in a china shop, and you take it really slow and take your time, being able to sympathetically restore it using the materials that were already there rather than like I've done in the lid there. Like I said, I'd rather use the original paper than my scanned reproduction, and only use that scanned reproduction if necessary. But I'd much rather have the original backing paper. Okay, so that's that side. Pretty well done. And then I've just got this little section of this side over here. And when I think about this suitcase, about the adventures it's been on, and possibly who owned it before me, it's, you know, if it could talk, it might, you know, talk of family holidays, because obviously suitcases like this weren't just thrown away when the war ended. They were, you know, popped on top of the wardrobe and used for family holidays to the seaside and, you know, that kind of thing. And when you consider this suitcase is older, probably older than my mum, because my mum was born in, well, actually it may be about the same age as mum. Mum was born in 1942, so and that was right in the middle of the war. And when the war ended, she was 3 years old. Probably can't remember any of it, to be honest. I've never really asked her whether she remembers any. But Dad's the same. Dad was born in the same year, just a few months earlier than Mum. Dad was born in the March. Mum was born in the June, 1942. And where they were born and lived was at one of the areas of the UK that was very heavily bombed, because it was a fishing port on the east coast of England. And to disrupt obviously industry and all that kind of stuff. The town was very heavily bombed. But not so bad that they had to be evacuated, because they all had shelters and that kind of stuff. Okay, so that I think is all the top section, all that's glued down. So the only thing that's remaining now is just that section of where the stitching is, and that's where the lid joins the suitcase. Let me just zoom out a little bit. There you go. So that's where the lid joins or is stitched to the actual back of the suitcase. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a coat of glue along there, and then I'm going to try and stick down all those pieces that are loose and flapping into position, and then I'll probably go over that section with some of the restoration paper that I've got. So that bit there, look, is where I've added. It's now starting to blend in quite nicely. So I shall give that a minute or two just to kind of start to dry out a little bit, and then I'll be back. Okay, so I've added glue all the way across that section there, just pasting down and making sure that any of the loose fragments are exactly where they should be. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to add another line of glue over the top, which is going to help to actually seal and hold the string in position. And it will help to strengthen that lid. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a strip of that restoration piece, and I'm going to try it's a bit difficult trying to wrestle with it at the same time, upside down, match up the pattern in the suitcase, like so, and then just smooth it down. And then I can go over the top, literally, with another coat. That will seal that in. And then I'll do the same thing again at this side with another piece. So make sure we've got enough. So probably about there. I'm just going to rip it. Just to feather that edge a little bit. So the thing with PVA is that it will add strength to the project. Okay, so we're about there. So just go in and just hold it down with my fingers. and then go over the top with that final coat. Make sure I get plenty of that glue on the top. And I think at this stage, that final piece of the jigsaw can now be added back into position. I think I'm just going to add it down there at the bottom. Okay, so I think now everything is stuck back down. See, it's all that glue's disappeared now. I'm going to leave that to dry for a good half hour or so, and then I'll be back. Okay, so everything's almost dry now, but I've had a slight change of plan. I think I am going to repair or recover those bits in there. I'm going to leave those two bits there as they are, because that's just, they will actually come off if I rub it with a bit of water. But I think, because of what I want to do on the inside of the lid, I am going to actually glue these down and cover that rip. So I've just mixed up some more of the PVA glue. So I'm just going to add some of that on and try and match up the pattern at that side. But I'm not going to be too upset if I don't get the pattern exact. Like I said, it will just disappear off into the background anyway. So we'll stick that down, and then we've got the larger piece, that second piece that we had before, and then I will stick that down in place about there, which is almost exactly where it needs to be. So I'll add some of that glue first of all on this side. Unlike the Mod Podge, you don't have to make sure you've got it on both sides. And then just lay that down gently, and that will just disappear. Because I've feathered the edges, that will just disappear. And then at this side, one of the reasons why I decided to go ahead and actually do the repair is that when I showed it to Ian, he said because of what I want to do after we've done all this, then it's all pretty much going to be hidden anyway. So there's no real reason not to patch up this bit. So I've taken him at his word. And also, if it does go completely and horribly wrong, it's all his fault. Ha ha ha. Not really. There we go. So I'm just going to go over the top with a coat. Just with a quick sealer coat. But I have to admit, it does look better once that sealer coat, or once it's all been repaired and restored. maybe a little bit, just a little bit of bubbling, but it will disappear. There we go. That should do us. That should do us. Right. So that's the lid. So I'm going to let that dry and I'll be back to finish off. Okay, so the lid is now kind of dry. So what I want to do is I want to just try and kind of even out that colour. It's more apparent on the screen than it actually is in real life. It does actually blend in quite well. It's just with the colour tones on the computer screens, it does stand out a little bit more. So what I want to do is I'm going to take some of the Tim Holtz Distress Collage Medium, the vintage, and a big brush. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to paint the whole thing on the inside with this collage medium. So that's going to give the whole lot a tint and will hopefully help to disguise the fact, because it will all be pretty much a very similar colour after I've done this. It will help to blend it all in together. And if it doesn't, then it just looks like a repair, exactly what it is. I will be adding something to the inside of this lid anyway, so which is why I wasn't particularly all that bothered about it not looking identical. But when Ian said, well, you're going to be sticking something in there anyway, so it'll probably help to disguise it a bit more if you add the matte medium. The back, so that's why I went and added those pieces, because I could do this sort of thing afterwards. So it's darkening it all up, just making it look a little bit more vintage than it actually already is. It's funny, isn't it? It's nearly 80 years old and it's too clean, so I'm dirtying it down. And I'm off camera slightly at the minute, but you pretty much get the idea of what I'm doing. There we go. So it is kind of helping to disguise those repairs. Make sure I get up the top. That's it. So everything gets a nice even coat. Even where we went this morning with the glue. So just go over the top of that. Again, give it another sealer coat. And I can always come back later and add a bit more just to make it look a bit more in keeping. But I think that's pretty much done it. This helps to disguise what's there. Okay, so get that dried off. I've already gone through and done the bottom part of the case, which is why you can see those differences in colour. I did that while I was waiting for the glue to finish on the lid, because I knew it would take quite a while to dry. But with this, I can get it done in a few minutes because it dries very quickly with the heat gun. Okay, so that's pretty much dried now, so it's kind of, I don't know if you can see it properly because of the size. It has started to kind of disguise, but I'm going to be sticking other bits and pieces over the top, and as you can probably see in the bottom right hand corner of the screen, I'm going to make a start on adding things to the suitcase now. So this is going to go in the bottom, so I'm going to add these 3 bits of kind of paraphernalia, just literally as they land in the bottom of the suitcase. So we'll start off with the Daily Profit one. Well, they're all the Daily Profit, and again I'm going to use the collage, Distress Collage Medium. I did say this suitcase was going to have a bit of a theme to it, so we'll just add some of that down there. And then we can start just by dropping that down on top and then going right the way over. And that gives it a nice kind of old vintage kind of varnish look over the top. And like I said, I'm not particularly bothered about trying to hide or making sure that it's even colour all the way over. So I'll just put this one down here up towards the bottom, quick coat there. Let's lay that one down there. Good old Bellatrix. Bellatrix Bagatrix. Like I said, I've had this suitcase for about 2.5 to 3 years practically, and I've been meaning to do this with it ever since I got it. So, about time, eh? Yeah. As soon as we're coming up towards Halloween, why not? Let's get plenty on. The beauty of this is you can always add bits in later on if you want to. I've got some really good like Harry Pottery kind of, or Wizarding World kind of adverts, which you could also use to line the bottom. So that will do for that for now. Just kind of add a little bit more grunge in there. Won't do it any harm at all. Okay, so now that we've got that in there, I want to add something onto the lid. And I've got this. So this is just a sticker for Hogwarts, or the crest for Hogwarts, and these are all over the internet. This is, like I said, I'm going to stick this in because I've actually backed it. So I've printed it out on my printer, and then I've just added some double-sided sticky to the back. I didn't want a lot of bulk, so I didn't do it on card, I just did it on paper. There we go. So the original idea was to have this on the front of the suitcase, which is why I did that one, but Ian says I should have a larger version on the inside of the suitcase. So I'm just following kind of what his suggestion has been so far. I think that's pretty much the middle. About there. Oh, look, I'm all out of focus. There we go, back in focus. And then, there we go. That can get stuck down. And again, I'm going to go over that with the vintage collage medium, just to add a little bit of kind of age and colour to it. This is why he says adding that paper behind, he says it probably, you're not going to notice it all that much because you're going to be adding the big Hogwarts sticker or crest over the top, and then adding the distress medium. Okay, so that's the inside done. I shall leave that to dry and I'll be back in a minute or two. Okay, so the inside is now dry. That's looking good. So I want to turn my attention to the front. So I would normally put the crest on there, but when the suitcase is stood up, it's going to be upside down. So actually you want to work backwards. So my crest should theoretically fit somewhere in the middle, about there. Now then, let's just make sure we're kind of getting this correct. So that's approximately between the, let's just call it about 38. So 19 is about the middle. So we're talking about there. So the middle is where that point is. Excellent. So what I need to do is just make a little mark so I know where I'm going. So I've got a little gold pen here. So if I just put a little mark where that pen is there, that should, I'll just go over the top. So about there. So again, this is a sticker. So just print it off on the computer and then some double-sided adhesive added to the back. But if you've got some sticker sheets, this is going to be a breeze for you. Okay, so we said where that mark was about there, and that's pretty straight, I think. Yeah, that'll do. I'm not so OCD that if it's a little bit out, don't really mind. Okay, so to add the luggage stickers onto the front, obviously we need to add some sympathetic ones. So we've got Hogwarts, so again all added on sticker. So this is the Hogwarts Express. So this image was originally the London to Edinburgh, London and North Eastern Railway. It said Edinburgh on there, and then under there it said, can't remember exactly what it said, I think it said the Flying Scotsman. So I digitally removed that, digitally removed the Edinburgh and added in the Hogwarts and the Express underneath. So again, just had a little play with my Adobe Photoshop, and we'll stick that one. Oh, that sounds like Ian just coming back. So we'll slap that one down there. Of course, I've got one from Ollivander's. So again, this was a white out with black. I brought it into my computer and then changed the background to like a cream colour, and then made all the writing and the logo a dark green, because I think dark green goes a lot better with Ollivander's. And I think actually, I'd have to just double check, but I think the front of Ollivander's shop is actually dark green. I seem to remember that colour when we went to the Harry Potter experience in January, but I could be wrong. So I'm going to stick that one about there. No rhyme or reason for these ones. And then we've got one from the Leaky Cauldron, Hogsmeade. Or is the Leaky Cauldron in Diagon Alley? I can never remember. I always get mixed up whenever I think of the bars and pubs in Harry Potter. I always think of the Prancing Pony, and isn't that the Lord of the Rings? There we go. So the leaky cauldron, it's either Diagon Alley or it is Diagon Alley. It says so on there. Diagon Alley. Leaky cauldron. So I'm not sure what the pub is called in Hogsmeade then. So we've got another Hogwarts Railway sticker here. It's Mr. Bentley running up the stairs. You may hear him squeaking his toy in a second. I'm just trying to get the back off these stickers. Because I've only used paper, they're very, very thin. So it's an art unto itself. Getting the back off once you've got it on a piece of paper. Card works a lot easier. There we go. So again, we've got another Hogwarts Railway, so I'll stick that one down there. So let's do it like that. And then up here we've got a fantastic one, Weasley's Wizard Wheezes. So again, this one originally was on I got from Pinterest, but it was on the front of a t-shirt, a blue t-shirt. So I digitally removed it, added the orange stars all the way around there, and then changed the background to purple, and then added that border to make a luggage sticker. And then finally, because when I was sorted into Hufflepuff, I've got the Hufflepuff house crest as well. So that's going to go on the front. And the beauty about all of these is that you can always add to them at a later date. So if you get another one, you can just add it on. Okay, so as we did on the inside, I'm going to do on the outside and just layer on a quick coat of that vintage medium, just to kind of give it a bit of age. Just be a bit more careful with this. I don't want to go over the actual suitcase too much, because I did polish it this morning, cleaned it and polished it, just to get it ready for what we're going to be doing today. So a bit more of that on the front, just to kind of seal it in, make it a bit weatherproof. Not that I'll probably ever be using this suitcase to go anywhere, but I may end up taking it when we do the steampunk shows. So just add a bit more grunge. Just helps to kind of weather it in a little bit. There we go. But because I can't, because of copyright issues, I can't sell a digi-download with these images, because I don't really own them. But this is a personal project for me. I'm not selling the suitcase. I'm just letting you see what I'm doing for my own benefit, the good of my health. But I got all these from the internet, Pinterest, whatever. Your own personal use. You could create something very similar if you wanted to. So there's the front of my suitcase, and there's the inside. All nice and dry now, and that is ready to be used. So I hope you've enjoyed watching me restore, clean and repurpose this old Evacuee suitcase, which is pretty much nearly 80 years old, and giving it a little bit of new life. So if you have enjoyed that, please remember to give the video a thumbs up, share the video with your friends, and if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel already, I forgot my own words there, you can do so by clicking the button at the end of the video. That's all from me for now. I'll see you all again very, very soon. Bye for now. I'd like to say a huge thank you to all of my angels, because without you, these videos would not be possible. Thank you.